beautiful, gorgeous flying shapes. They're always different, and this helps also the animator.
This plasticine 13 years old, so it's a little stiff.
There's not an instruction manual for this stuff, I tell you.
Hi, I'm Ollie Jones, and I'm the head of character and practical effects at LAIKA.
My name's Craig Atkinson. I'm head of rigging at LAIKA Studios. We're both here today in the LAIKA archives to show you guys some of the amazing sort of rigging work that we did and to revisit some of the practical effects from ParaNorman.
I'm super psyched. This is turning into the most fun night ever.
ParaNorman was a really challenging show for the rigging department. So many exciting practical effects that we had to deal with. A lot of motion, really kinetic sequences that really demanded a lot from our engineers and our artists.
We always like to shoot things in camera whenever we can. Try to push the boundaries of how far can we take practical effects.
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
Blast from the past.
Who we got here?
That's Perry Guy.
Oh, it's not bulky.
No.
Yeah.
Here we actually have some of the ground pieces that we used in the movie. We're going to demonstrate how we rigged the dirt. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what's happening under the set there?
So we've got a simple vertical rig going on here, and this gives the animator the incremental control to bring the zombie up through the broken ground plane. And all these pieces, because this was an original piece, they would have all fit together neatly and all the seams would be dressed in. And gradually, as the zombie reaches the surface, the animator will pose these floor sections frame by frame, and eventually, voila.
So this was what I used to call my little dirt tally. It's basically a little sampling of different types of dirt. And what we did, we started testing different varieties of animatable soil here. This is just a kind of like a sand that's been mixed with a mineral oil. And you see that it doesn't fall, it kind of just stays in a chunk. So it's kind of like holding some shape. Actually doing the testing for this animator called Kyle Bell, he took a lump like this, he animated it, it broke. And as it broke the ground, he used coffee grounds. And what he did a swap out at the point of impact, and then he animated the coffee grounds on the set.
Really cool.
And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. We wanted all those dirt clogs to kind of catch air. So these are all our rigs to make that happen. This whole set was made with neoprene. So it's all soft and pinnable.
What I think is really cool about this kind of rigging is it's kind of the polar opposite to some of our equipment that's heavily engineered,
yeah,
manufactured equipment to, a bug pin and some posable wire.
So Brian, I feel like something's come between us.
Yeah, maybe I should stall. This is the bathroom set. You can see the walls are, shall we demonstrate, hinged. So if I were the animator or Ollie was, then they could be here while the camera was crowded in right here.
What we're actually doing is we're enabling the animator to get in to animate a puppet or an effect, and then every frame is going to register back to the same position.
It was an entire project to develop the toilet paper for this, to make it look right, to give it the right texture. Some paper needed to be highly shapeable and moldable, depending on what the action was happening. And some needed to be gauzy and light for translucency, like the zombies, and in some cases, some of the paper that was dressed on the floor. But our main workhorse one looked like this. The core is a painted aluminum. Laminated to that on either side is this material. It's a non-woven material. And then it gets a little emboss across here to indicate the tear lines, keeping with the art of the movie where there's not a right angle anywhere in the movie, not allowed. All those lines of even the perforations are angled and they're jogged and they're not the same, so it matches the art of the show. This was done with, here's a tiny little example here. This is the same foil-filled toilet paper. It just goes through foam, a stiff foam, and then on a little wire so you can bring it down in increments. This is kind of the mechanism here. I've got a couple under here. There were many of them under there for the actual shot. It would be falling down in increments like this, up, 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 like that. So you can imagine that with a whole circus.
It's like a flea circus, isn't
It's
it?
a little flea circus.
Yeah.
Flea toilet paper circus.
Ew.
And we had the lid that Norman stood on, and there's a ball joint here, so it can change its angle, and we have a winder underneath to raise and lower it. And then we had a series of replacement pieces of printed of the water flowing out of the toilet over the seat and out onto the floor. And those snapped into a magnetic register in there, so it could be done over and over again reliably. As the toilet is exploding and the water is coming out, it cuts to Alvin and he sees this puddle coming in. That was done with this LAIKA brand rig water, not available anywhere else or in stores. And I'll give you a little example of it. Here's a piece of the floor. The animator could squeeze this puddle out, and mind you, they had the advantage of being on the other side of the wall, so the animator could start the puddle over here out of view and keep filling it from the other side. So they could use a pin to kind of coax that puddle across the floor and then smooth the top. And the nice thing about LAIKA brand rig water is it won't dry, because the animators might be out here for a week or longer doing the shot, and we have lots of lights. We don't want it to evaporate. We don't want it to skin over.
That's an amazing gag. Can you tell us what's in the water?
I can't tell you everything that's in it, but there's a small amount of lavender oil to calm the animator. And I don't usually tell people about that. And a small amount of ammonia to make it smell like it came out of a toilet.
Yeah, you might want to give that a few minutes.
Halfway through the sequence, the walls start to kind of close in on Norman, literally. What we started to look at was maybe Mr. Prendergast. His face could be what's actually activating the movement of the walls. This is a 3D print of Prendergast's face. So we 3D printed it, and we put that on actuators. And Brian, if you can just
It's a bigger scale, right?
This is a bigger scale. So this is like, probably 500% scale Prendergast face.
Yeah.
And so what we're able to do is we remade these walls using rubber, and then we push Prendergast's face through into the store walls. And there we see a little bit of a foreshadowing of who's about to come through the toilet. While the walls are kind of like thrashing around, the tiles at the back are actually like kind of cascading down. And so each one of these little tiles was actually cut out of styrene and was glued onto a giant piece of latex. And so each one of these tiles independently rigged to this piece of latex. And then we had these balls that was kind of like dragging against the store wall that was creating this kind of cascading effect. Mayhem.
So much stuff at one time.
Look out! Oh no! That was Norman!
Is everyone okay?
No!
The end of the van chase, this created a lot of challenges for me. There's a lot going on in this sequence, so I'm going to explain a little bit about how we solved some of these problems. All right, here it comes. Oh my, all right, here we go. This was, from what I can remember, this was called the A-scale van. This was the B-scale van. And there was also a C-scale van, which was a teeny little tiny van. If you've got a wide shot where you've got the van far in the distance, maybe, you know, driving over a hill or something, then we can't use a large scale van, because by the time the van is small enough, then it's going to be outside the building. This is the main scale van. It goes off the road into the air. We switched to this B-scale van, which we attached to a motion control rig. But there's a little metal plate that I built inside here, which was the connection to the motion control rig. The camera was over here. The motion control rig effectively controlled this rolling down the hill. This van rolled to a halt. All the characters get out, and we'd switch out the vans. This was almost like animation ad-libbing, right? We had to piece together this entire van out of all the separate panels and try and work out in my head how the animator might want to break this thing apart and how it might act if it did just collapse and all the panels fell apart, you know, into a big pile. The animator could just maybe collapse this panel this way, maybe even the other way. The wheels would just then fold out like that. Maybe this would collapse down like this. Maybe that would go in that way like that. These are just barbells and joints. We use these for pretty much everything. It's just a really simple way of the animator being able to tension these joints to their liking. They're like the bread and butter of rigging, really. The wheel bounces away, rolls away, you know. And it was really simple. We just, midway through the shot, he'd just detach one of these wheels and we'd connect it then just to like an external, just a heavy foot like this. And then the animator would just roll the wheel away. Yeah, that's how we did it. What's Ollie got here?
This is a R&D model that we built specifically for our VFX team to study the effects of locomotion on bridle veil or tool. And so we built this funnel cloud as a way just to make sure that our visual effects and our practical effects are working in harmony. This was built using these little bobbins. These bobbins are in fact made for the ribbon mice in Coraline. And we've been using them and we still use them today. And then if you look right underneath here, there are some markings where the animator can kind of track the motion. Each one of these gets a separate kind of rate. And then Matt DeLu, who's one of our miniature light specialists, he kind of put some little LEDs inside that would represent lightning. So we can get a real effect and we can really like study to see the effects of light and how light passes through these different materials and how the materials cross over each other. It's the build up to what is kind of almost like the main event of the movie.
That's right,
the
yeah.
big end sequence, which involves Aggie and Norman facing off.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to show us here, Craig.
This is the infamous Aggie go round, as it came to be known. So it came out of trying to solve the problem of create a rig that allows Aggie to split into four and then rotate around Norman, giving the animator the control that he needs. Okay, so what I decided to do was to put the four Aggies. There was four originally. I've left one out just so you can see properly here, but if you imagine there was another one here. I mounted them all onto one of these bits of motion control kit that we have in rigging. Now, the animator then could animate Aggie rotating around Norman and advance it frame by frame, right? So this is a box, the control box that we can alter the rate, you know, the power, the speed, etc. When it came to wanting to move, you know, the Aggies around Norman to take another frame, would just move it incrementally to the next position. And now, while all this is happening, the animator would also be switching out Aggie's faces to create the facial animation.
I don't like this story. She turned away from everyone and became sad and lonely and had no one to turn to. Stop it!
Well, that was fun. I've had fun. Have you had fun?
That was really enjoyable, showing you some of the challenges that ParaNorman gave us, and it was really a launch pad for the way LAIKA would continue to work for the next 13 years. Well, I'd like to thank the archivists, you know, for keeping everything safe.
Thank you.
And thank you to the fans for keeping the love of this movie alive. And we look forward to sharing more of these archive series with you again.
Thank you.